Yes, so we're releasing a report called Brokering Up, the Role of Temporary Staffing in Overcoming Labor Market Barriers. And this report came about when we were asked at the Center for Social Policy, we were asked by the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation to monitor what they called the alternative staffing demonstration, in which they granted four community agencies that conduct alternative staffing grants to enhance their services. And so at the Center for Social Policy, we monitored these organizations over a couple of years, and we're now presenting the findings of the study. And these four organizations are community agencies, and they perform alternative staffing, and we call them alternative staffing organizations. And by that we mean that they meet the standard business function of providing staffing services, which is putting employers in contact with workers. But they do it with a social mission, which is that they are using the staffing model to serve a population of people who have difficulty finding jobs on their own. They face barriers in the labor market, most often a lack of recent work experience. So in order to talk about the findings from this study, we actually, I actually want to review a little bit the goals, which was that alternative staffing organizations are not well known. And so we also set about describing and learning about their main characteristics. And we came out with a set of interesting findings from the study that concern the workers themselves, the customer employers, as well as concern community agencies as a whole and what might be their interest in learning about this model of serving populations that have difficulty in the labor market. So from the worker side, what we confirmed is that these alternative staffing organizations connect people to work and achieve multiple goals for them. They might help them with immediate earnings. They might help them develop an employment record and enhance their chances of remaining in the labor market. And it helps them develop strong and positive relationships with the world of work and with employers. So that's for the worker side. On the employer side, what we found is that these organizations have a very special insight into the business needs of employers, and that makes them strong advocates and strong service providers for the workers they seek to place. And we also found out from employers themselves, whom we interviewed, that they value the particular mix of services that they receive from alternative staffing organizations. They value the mix of having workers that receive additional supports to help them to get to work, as well as they value the responsiveness of the staff from the alternative staffing organization that has such a strong stake in helping the worker stay in the job that they tend to be very responsive to employer concerns in the workplace. And finally, we have findings that are of relevance to the world of community agencies that have a mission of helping people that have difficulties in the labor market. And that is that we're able to demonstrate that this model of alternative staffing can work for placing large volumes of workers or small volume of workers. It can help to serve populations that have a great deal of barriers in the market, like people that have a recent experience with homelessness and might have other issues, as well as people that are near ready to get back into work and just experience difficulty getting into that first job after an interruption in their work career. So in a sense, we were able to document what these organizations do from several perspectives and find that they play a positive role in the world of workers, in the world of employers, and for community organizations. The other thing, as an additional finding, is that we're also able to see across these four organizations that are the host for alternative staffing agencies, a real diversity in type of community organization. And so we're able to show that this alternative staffing model works in very diverse settings. It's a very flexible model. And finally, what I haven't talked about so far is that these organizations operate like a business. They are fee-for-service providers. They collect a fee from the employer for staffing a position. And what that income enables them to do is to alleviate some of the cost of running the operation, and so that they can reserve and earmark philanthropic resources, grant resources from the public sector to help the workers directly while they alleviate some of the administration costs of running the staffing functions thanks to the fees that they collect from employers. At the Center for Social Policy and at the McCormick Graduate School, we've been actually thinking a little bit about how the current economy, and particularly the high unemployment, is likely to affect the conditions of people that are low income, as well as the functioning of the labor market as a whole. And that's kind of brought me to think a little bit about how are these organizations going to be affected. So in the most immediate way for us at the Center for Social Policy to think about this is that, first of all, these organizations are going to have more people coming to their door looking for help in the job market, because we all know that when the job market gets a lot tougher, the most vulnerable job seekers are the ones that are going to have that much more difficulty. So that's sort of a fairly direct effect that the economy is going to have on the operations of these organizations. On the other hand, what I find interesting about these organizations is that they can be looked to as a model to help job seekers who have difficulty in the labor market generally, so that as the federal government and as state governments start to implement programs and policies that are responses to the very weak labor market and the high unemployment rate, they'll be looking for ways to match people to jobs, and to match people to jobs efficiently, quickly, and in a way that serves also the employers where people are being placed. And I think that the experiences of these organizations who have been doing this hard work of day in and day out of serving businesses and serving a population that has special needs in the market, that these organizations have a lot to contribute to discussions around implementation of policy. And it's for that reason that a study that is really a study about organizations per se has relevance to our thinking about policy and our thinking about employment policy. And these are all topics that at the McCormick Graduate School and at the Center for Social Policy, we really invest a great deal of time thinking about and coming up with solutions. One of the more interesting things that we found, which I also think is a key to the success of alternative staffing organizations, is that they invest a fair amount of staff time in preparing the worker for the assignment, in learning about the work site itself, and then in monitoring the worker while they're on assignment, particularly at the beginning. And that entails also being in touch with the supervisor or the HR representative at the work site to just check in and make sure that there aren't difficulties. And all of this is done, again, to meet this dual goal of making sure the worker has the best chance, but also making sure that you can retain a customer employer and not lose the business. So the way that this sort of practice comes across when it's done at its best, as a best practice, is that we will hear workers say, I know what to expect. The rules are explained to me, and sometimes when there's a misunderstanding, I get taken aside and it gets clarified. But the workers also say statements such as, they'll pick you up when you fall. Importantly, on the employer side, and we spend more time interviewing employers, we hear statements about how they're in touch, they're responsive. If there's a problem, they respond to my call right away. And what you have to understand is that when you place workers that are in the bottom of the labor market, you also end up competing with conventional labor force intermediaries, some temporary staffing companies that are fairly low-end operators. And so what we hear from the customer employers of these alternative staffing organizations is that they'll say things like, well, with the other services, I never hear from them again. The worker comes, and that's my last contact, except for bill. Alternatively, the employer might say, well, I use temporary staffing to screen workers before I can hire them. And I find that when I have very specific needs, this organization will spend more time asking me questions and trying to come up with the best fit, so that when their workers actually come, I have a good chance at not only screening this person, but retaining that person, because to begin with, they were well screened and well supported. So at their best, alternative staffing organizations are able to again, meet both of these needs.